Why was Yoda one of the only Jedi in all of the lore that had the ability to sense Order 66? Greetings, students of the Force, and welcome back to the archives. The Great Jedi Purge hit out of nowhere and occurred so fast that it left the galaxy with whiplash. Once Order 66 was called, the clone troopers caught their Jedi generals completely by surprise and mowed them down all at once. Not a single Jedi sensed what was happening until it was far too late. None of them did, except for Grandmaster Yoda. Across the galaxy of Kashyyyk, the Old Master was feeling the waves of dark energy that came from Anakin's fall, and he was expressly aware of the sudden massive loss of Jedi life. And of course, when his own troopers attempted to kill him, he instantly relieved them of their heads without even needing to look to confirm his suspicion. So why was this? Is it just because Yoda was so powerful? Well, join us today as we open a holocron and dive into how Yoda was able to sense the Jedi Purge when no other Jedi could. It should first be noted that there were several individuals that actually sensed the fall of Anakin Skywalker and the shift of balance in the galaxy, mainly of course Ahsoka Tano and the Jedi Master of Cal Kestis, Jaro Tapal. However, I believe there is a key difference between this and what we see occur with Yoda on Kashyyyk. It is clear that Yoda is instantly able to recognize his enemy and understands the full scope of Order 66. However, with Ahsoka Tano, what she actually sensed was the fall of Anakin Skywalker, as Ahsoka did not sense the danger of the clones that surrounded her. She trusted them nearly completely, and had it not been for Rex warning her about the past of Fives and the inhibitor chips, Ahsoka likely would have perished. She was sensing Anakin. In the case of Cal Kestis Master Jaro Tapal, he was likely tipped off because Cal saw the commander move to attack him before he could sense the danger of the clones. And while it's true that Jaro Tapal did sense the mass Jedi death in Order 66, as well as had Cal Kestis tip him off that the clones were going to be betraying them, it is clear that Yoda holds a profound understanding of Order 66 as he senses it, one that the other Jedi do not share. Although the other Jedi sense some semblance of the fall and the transition of the galaxy from light to dark, it is very clear something different is happening with the Grand Master. The veil of the dark side did a lot of heavy lifting when it came to catching the Jedi off guard. Palpatine had expertly used the pain, death, and turmoil of a war in the galaxy to weave a blanket of energy that clouded the Jedi's vision. Even Yoda was affected by it for a long period of time, and only those who fell to the dark side were able to pierce this veil and see what was really going to happen in the future. With their visions clouded, the Jedi were blind to the machinations of the Sith, even when they looked into the Force for countless hours. This is one of the first things that kept the Jedi from seeing that the Purge was happening in the future. At the moment that Order 66 was called, the clone inhibitor chips activated and made them pretty much as emotionless as droids. Since Jedi rely heavily on being able to sense the emotions of their enemy, as this reveals their next move, the Jedi were completely open to the clones, who were simply following orders with no emotion or hatred at all. The only Jedi other than Yoda who sensed his clones had turned on him in a split second was Ki-Adi-Mundi, and that was because one of his clone lieutenants bore aggressive feelings towards Ki-Adi-Mundi, and Mundi was able to pick up on this. But as Jedi fell left and right across the stars, a massive disturbance tremored the Force, one that only a very select few Jedi could feel, namely the Grand Master. But the reason for this is truly shocking. Yoda knew that it was coming and knew what to look for. In Season 6 of the Clone Wars, Yoda follows the ghostly voice of Qui-Gon Jinn to the world of Dagobah, when Yoda enters the dark side cave only to have vague visions of the events to come, Order 66 and the death of the Jedi. Greatly disturbed by the future events, Yoda would go on to quietly watch the war play out. His plan was likely to wait until the moment was correct, and he could catch the Sith in the act. This is likely why Yoda went to the front lines of war instead of staying behind on Coruscant. He could feel the shift coming, but did not know where or when, and so he wanted to be with the clones so that he could stop it personally. Unfortunately, Yoda could never have predicted that Anakin would fall to the dark side or the scale of Order 66. This is what Palpatine's entire plan hinged on. So even though Yoda knew that this was all coming thanks to Qui-Gon Jinn and the lessons of the Jedi that had passed on, he was blindsided by the rest and the true scale of the Sith's revenge. But with this, there's another question. All of this could be avoided if Yoda had gone to the Jedi Council about his visions, allowing them to prepare, but instead, Yoda continued to keep his journeys to Dagobah and the wellspring of the Force a secret. This was for many reasons. Firstly, Qui-Gon Jinn's voice had told him to come to Dagobah alone and to trust no one. The Council beforehand already thought that Yoda was either going senile or under the influence of the Sith because he had supposedly began hearing voices in his head. The Council had placed him in the hospital wing under armed guard, and Yoda had to use Anakin's help in order to escape. This is no mere Jedi. This is the Grand Master, and the Council did not trust him. If Yoda had come back raving about visions on a swamp world and the Jedi's demise, he would have had to tell them about Qui-Gon and everything, and the Council would not have believed him in this state. The Council, in fact, didn't trust him anymore. Many of them secretly blamed how long the war had gone on Yoda and his old age, although they would never speak it publicly. Yoda was extremely wise, because assuming they did believe this information, this would cause a mass panic at best, and at that point, the idea that the clones would turn against the Jedi was catastrophic. The war was raging on, and if the Jedi could not trust the clones anymore, or had them decommissioned, the war would be lost completely, and the Separatists would be victorious. Besides, there were likely not much the Jedi could do at this point, even if Yoda had said something. When he saw the visions of Dagobah, he didn't just see the future, but he felt a piece of the dark side power that the Sith held, and it was enough to make him pass out. When talking with Qui-Gon, Yoda is astonished at how much power the Sith had, and he asked if all the things they saw would in fact come true. The Sith were far more powerful than Yoda had anticipated, and here, Qui-Gon teaches his new student the unfortunate truth. They are already happening. They have been happening, and they will happen. It's all only a matter of time. The very nature of Qui-Gon's quest for Yoda was for him to complete the training of the Force priestesses, and to retain his identity after his death. Yoda understood the implications of this quest, and that he may not survive the coming darkness either. Yoda accepted this. Although he was not yet aware of how far the Sith had evolved, Yoda was aware that their plans had progressed extremely far. Telling the Council would do nothing but make the Jedi paranoid and give the Sith a greater advantage. And so, with a heavy heart, Yoda would keep quiet and return to the Jedi Temple with his knowledge to himself. There, he would wait out the Sith's grand plan, keeping an eye on the troopers. And for a while, the Grand Master remained on Coruscant until he felt that he was needed on Kashyyyk. So while he was there, he meditated and kept his mind open to the world around him, the galaxy. For the entirety of the final hours of the war, Yoda was plunged into the rest of the galaxy through the Force and could feel everything happening. With his mind slightly above the veil of the darkness, he could finally make proper decisions. This is when he sensed the clone troopers behind him. He didn't even need so much as to confirm his suspicions. After the disturbance he had felt through the Force, he knew that the time was now, and so afterwards, he returns to the hidden escape pod that he had at the ready. Another indication that Yoda knew something was going to happen on Kashyyyk, and that the Clone Wars was coming to an end. He knew that he wouldn't be able to rely on Republic transport if something were to go down, and so he had prepared the Wookiees and Kashyyyk for himself. A personal escape pod. The sad reality is, Yoda knew that something was going to happen. He knew the implications of Order 66, and yet, the war was lost. And unfortunately, Yoda knew it. But he also knew that they had to prepare for the next generation, and hold faith that the next generation of Jedi would not make the same mistakes that Yoda and his generation had. But anyway, my friends, this is why Yoda was one of the only Jedi to sense Order 66, and to sense it at its full scale. Yoda was the only Jedi that knew the true magnitude of the Order, but also why Yoda decided not to warn the Jedi Council. But now we turn it over to you. Do you believe it could have made a difference? And had you wondered before how Yoda knew his clones were going to betray him when the other Jedi didn't? As always, my friends, thank you so much for visiting and supporting the channel. It means the absolute world to me. And as always, may the Force be with you.